Idia div. Agus Volchagudi, Terra Incogweirdo Mokarjas. Hello, and welcome to Terra Incogweirdo, my friends. Today, I'm coming to you from the Weasleys' house. I'm here watching their pets while they are on a Weasley vacation, such as the lovely Miss Papaya. She's a good girl. She's a good girl. Yeah, she's a sweet pie. Yeah, okay. So, at the end of the last video, I told you I was going to do a video today about a ghost that I picked up while looking at a house for sale out in Carroll County, Maryland, near the Maryland-Pennsylvania border. However, I realized that the near-death experience that I had in my early 20s happened in between the incubus attack of the last video and me picking up the spirit while going to look at a house for sale. So I am going to today tell you the story about my near-death experience when I was in my early 20s. I did prepare this story as a belief hole submission. However, to date, they have not yet read it. If they do, that would be wonderful, because once again, they are so good at reading listener stories. And those boys, those belief hole brothers are just so smooth in the way that they deliver their stories. So I'd love to hear them read it. But for now, here is a story that I call Knitting My Death Shroud. In the autumn of 1986, when I was 23 years of age, after my battle with the incubus, I contracted meningitis out of the blue and was rushed to the nearest hospital in Maryland. No one could figure out how I had gotten sick in the first place. As I knew of no one else with meningitis, I have always wondered if it was a residual effect of ousting the incubus demon. But none of that mattered. All I could think about was my then 11-month-old infant son and the possibility of him falling terribly ill with this disease. After the ordeal of the spinal tap, that was fun. It was confirmed that I did in fact have viral, not bacterial meningitis. As the viral brand of meningitis is untreatable, I was sequestered to a private room and essentially left alone to sink or swim. I don't know if that's how they handle things, guys, now in the 2020s, but in the 1980s, if you had meningitis, you were fairly left alone. Even if you were hospitalized, because there was nothing that could be done, and it's very contagious. I can only remember seeing a nurse twice within the first 12 hours of my admittance. It was the first time in my life I had ever seen a person masked and gloved, and by her movements, it was clear to me that she was terrified to get too close. During her second stop, she administered pain medication and left. As it turned out, I was allergic to that pain medication and vomited violently for the next several hours. The pain of my meningitis-ravaged neural system, combined with the unrelenting spasms of projectile vomiting, soon reduced me to my primitive core. I had never actually been able to get out of bed, and lying there covered in my own sick, tangled in a twist of soaked hospital-grade sheets, I began the slow process of dying. At first, I noticed a dark shadow forming in the corner of the room and began watching it with detached interest. It was becoming darker and more solid as each torturous moment followed upon the heels of the next. At the same time, my grasp on the limits of my physical form began to unwind like a sprung clock. I felt my energetic body slowly spread out and dissipate as if my atomic structure might be blown away by nothing more than a gentle sigh. This mechanism of death continued for some unknown amount of time, for surely I had already passed over that threshold to where time has no bearing. As the dark figure continued to coalesce and take on a vaguely human form, I realized that it was being funneled from above like a particulate thread of void black sand. My vision focused and followed it backwards to its source until I realized that the filament populating the shadow was issuing directly from the crown of my head. With the briefest flash of remorse and something akin to relief, I saw it all at once. I was dying here, alone, in this stinking hospital that had taken the life of my father 10 years earlier. In 1976, my father had gone into this hospital for a bowel rescission. The surgeon nicked his bowel, and my beloved father, the only person in this world who loved me despite the weird psychic freak that I was and still am, died of septicemia at the age of 54 in this neglectful disaster of a hospital where I myself currently lay dying. The synchronicity of it might have been interesting if my energetic being had not, at that very moment, been busily knitting my own death shroud. And I could feel it. I was becoming not just lighter, but actual light. Astounding it was. All impurities of the soul, all hated mistakes and misdeeds, willful or otherwise, began dropping away from me to craft that shroud. It was black because it comprised the residual tar of the totality of a life's folly. As if a celluloid layer had been dropped over the room, I felt Clotho standing just out of sight behind my right shoulder, spinning, still spinning. I could hear her loom. My life's yarn lay across the open palms of her sister, Lachesis, who swayed at the foot of my bed, holding it up, turning it this way and that, measuring, deciding the exact spot most propitious for termination. And in the corner, glimpsed through the chaotic scribble of my own death shroud, grinned the inexorable Atropos, opening and closing her shears to the stalling rhythm of my failing heart. If this was a hallucination, it was frighteningly real. I just want to pause there for a minute, Incogweirdos, to let you know that at this time in my life, I was in college studying ancient history. And ancient history comprises a large amount of mythology. I think it was the previous year I had completed my Greek studies, thus the image of Clotho and Atropos and Lachesis was very prominent in my forebrain, and I think that might be why I conjured them in that room, or if they were really there at all, but I definitely felt them and heard them and experienced them as I described. My eyes began to close then, for me, what felt like the last time. It was as if I was perched at the very brink, my toes wrapped around the edge of the platform, ready to vault into the unknown. My metaphysical being hunkered low into the crouch that would propel me into the next bardo, when I felt my mattress sink low as someone sat down and placed a light hand on my left leg, patting as if to coax me back into wakefulness. I opened my eyes and sucked in a breath that felt like a knife honed with icy clarity. My languorous acquiescence to death summarily stripped back like a dirty sheet. I stared fixedly at the hand sitting lightly just above my left knee. I remember blinking at it for what might have been minutes or hours to convince myself that it was real. The word nurse sounded in my brain like a Buddhist gong. And my sight followed the reverberations up the arm to the elbow and rested at the shoulder. Do nurses wear tweed jackets? I wondered. I touched the fabric. Rough, scratchy. Maybe this nurse was just stopping by before heading home. My lids began to ebb once again, yet the nurse did not seem content to let me drift away as I so desperately desired. No, the hand was shaking my knee now, and then I heard my name being spoken by a voice I had never thought to hear again in this life or any other. My eyes flew open, and this time they locked upon the adoring eyes of my very own father, dead some 10 years. No ghost, this. Solid, warm breathing. More here than here. Suddenly the wheels of death paused. It is hard to express what I felt at that moment. Being in the presence of my father once again transcends my ability to describe. It was a joy so overwhelming. It was like unto drowning, like being subsumed in perfect bliss. Thinking of it now as I write this, my eyes blur over with tears of immense gratitude. Such an amazing, consummate soul blessing. Words are defeated by their own inadequacy. Has anybody ever experienced that, Incogweirdos? Have you ever had a dream of someone who has died, a loved one, a pet, and the way that feels when you see them again is like nothing else. Just, it's indescribable. The elation is all-consuming, amazing. My father and I had a long conversation outside the rules of space and time. He knew all that had passed with me since he had quit his body, although he could not positively discern what was yet to be. Here at the crossroads, he said, it was my free will that would place my feet upon the next path. It was then it dawned on me that I was being given a choice, and I was gobsmacked. Here it was, get out of life free card number 2 on my current corporeal contract. Number 1 had been presented at 3 months, as is tradition. At least that's my belief, that it's traditional to get your first get out of life free card when you're still an infant. I remember asking him, do you mean I can actually leave with you right now? The temptation was searing, a hair's breadth from impossible to bear. The greatest mystery, the thing that tantalized me more than any other notion, here was the answer being presented to me on a silver platter. Dad smiled and nodded his head. He lifted up his palm to me and said, all you have to do is take my hand and you can leave with me right now. The excitement at the possibility washed over me like a physical dowsing, and my body convulsed from head to toe. God, I remember that, like spasmed all the way from my head all the way down to my toes. The impulse was excruciating. Yet in that instance, the visage of my bright, beautiful baby boy filled my mind's eye. I looked into my father's eye and said, Z. My father nodded and responded, Z. The decision, which really in the end was no decision at all, had been made. I blinked, and all the impurities of mind, body, and soul contained within my death shroud scattered along the winds between worlds, following their own diaspora to be remade into something clean, beautiful, and new. I blinked. My father kissed me on the forehead and said, "Sleep now. See you next time, my angel." That was his nickname for me because, well, Angela means angel in Italian. I blinked. I woke up the next day, still covered in sick, still unattended in that fetid hospital, yet miraculously healed. Only now I was ready, like my father, to say F you to the prohibitions of life and death, get my odiferous ass home, and raise my sweet son. So that's my story as written out about my near-death experience. And my father was in that room with me. I'm not sure about Clotho and Lachesis and Atropos. There was something else in the room. It was very crowded with energy and souls, perhaps other dead relatives waiting to see if I was going to come over to them or not. But it was a truly amazing experience, and when I came away from it, I was literally cleansed. Because I became so close to death, all of my impurities had been cleansed from me in the knitting of that death shroud. And what I believe happens when you're getting ready to pass over, I don't think you can pass through that veil and go on to a new life if you are bogged down by bad karma, bad decisions, sorrow, and grief. And I think what was happening was that my body was energetically letting go of all of that so I could transcend to the next dimension. Because if you're gonna transcend, you can't be heavy and weighed down with the pain and all of the things that come with living in a body in this world, and you have to let it go before you can transcend into a new form. And that's what I think happens when you knit a death shroud. So my question to you, Incogweirdos, have you ever had a experience similar to this, or do you know anyone who has described having a near-death experience and then said that they felt cleansed and like a new person when they came back from it? Let me know in the comments, or if you like, you can write the story in to me at terraincogweirdo@gmail.com, and I would love to read it on the channel, because y'all gotta be tired of hearing my stories. How about some of yours? Hells yes, let's do that. Okay, so yeah, let's do some psychic practice with Purple Mommy. I'm gonna do things a little different. Okay, we're gonna try something a little different. I'm going to look at 3 things in my environment. I'm going to tell you what they are, but I'm just going to pick one of them. And down in the comments below, you tell me which object I picked. So I'm going to look at the 3 objects, and then I'm going to look in the camera and project it to you. You try to pick it up from me, and then write it down in the comments below. Okay, so the 3 objects I'm looking at beautiful Miss Papaya. Come here, sweetie. Come here. She's such a sweet girl. Look at that face. Look at your face. She's such a sweet girl. Okay, Miss Papaya is one thing. A globe of the world is the other, and a stack of Rubik's Cubes is the third. Okay, so I gotta pick one. Papaya or the globe or the Rubik's Cubes? Okay, all right, I got it. Which one did I pick? Look in my eyes and get it from there. Okay, and write it down in the comments below. All right, guys, well, thanks for coming in. So next time I will give you the story about the ghost that I picked up while looking at a house for sale, and she's still with me. Eventually she told me her story, and I wrote a novel about it. You'll learn all about it next time, here on Terra Incogweirdo, the land where para is normal. I love you guys. I hope you're having a wonderful winter or summer, wherever you are on this beautiful Incog planet. Blessed be, and I'll see you next time here on Terra Incogweirdo. Salango fall, you beautiful Incog weirdos. Bye.